How soon is too soon to date a guy who just got out of a long-term relationship? This is actually a question that I get so often. So I figured this would be a great opportunity to answer this question. This is something that a lot of women are worried about when they start dating a new guy, that either he's just getting out of a long-term relationship, or is getting divorced, or has gotten divorced, and they're always wondering, like, how soon is too soon? Is it? Do you have to wait a year? Do you have to wait a couple years? Do you wait a month? You just broke up last week. He said, does that matter? So here's, I'm going to keep it very, very and simple for you guys, right? Because timing, or the amount of time, there's no specific amount of time. Right? There's no specific amount of days or amount of weeks or months or even years that could answer this question, right? Because people are very, very different, especially when it comes to relationships. Every relationship is going to be different. At some point, sometimes you can break out of a relationship, and one of you, or even both of you, in some instances, could be checked out of that relationship for years at this point, right? And only decided to really make it official, right? And say, hey, you know what? Like, it's time. Years later, months later, weeks later, I don't know, whatever, right? Or at least one of you could be at a point where they have checked out of that relationship a long time ago, and they were just either waiting for the right opportunity, or they were just waiting for, other factors. They told themselves that maybe, like, we stay together for the kids, or we stay together for other reasons, for a mortgage, for this, for that. There's so many reasons why people who choose to stay together outside of actually wanting to be in a relationship with another person, right? So again, it really, really, really depends on the specific relationship that they were with, right? Someone could be at a point where they've ended their relationship, or they got divorced years ago, yet they're still not over their ex. They still blame that person for a whole lot of problems in their lives. They still have, a lot of just like healing to do, a lot of like finding themselves to do, right? Because they've closed themselves off, or they told themselves that they still need more time to heal, more time to isolate themselves, and they just are not at the point where they can genuinely just build a relationship with someone else. And usually you can see these signs, right? You can tell that someone that you start dating is either talking about their ex a lot, whether that's talking good things or talking bad things, and complaining about her or him, and saying, oh, they did this to me, or they did that to me. If they're doing that, they're not over them, period. And not just because when I say not over them, it's not because they're still in love with them, but they're just not over that situation. They're not over that relationship. I don't care how long it has been since, they're just not over that situation. The whole point is the fact that that person, their ex, right, still occupies a place, right, and a big place, a big chunk, right, of place in their mind. That's the problem. Not the fact that they're still in love with them or whatever. It could be hate, it could be love. I don't care what the feeling is. But as long as they feel some type of way about their relationship, their ex-relationship, or their ex-partner, right, that tells me that they're just not at the point where they're ready in their lives to really explore healthily, right? Healthily, is that a word? Explore a relationship with another person. That's all that, you should be really paying attention to. I don't care if it's been like a couple of days and it's like, oh, we broke up last week, or I just finally moved out. But if they're still occupying a place in their mind, so they're talking about that person a lot, if they still live with that person, like, you know what I mean? A lot of like, oh, they still live together because they haven't really, or they're doing it for the kids, or they still think, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's very difficult to really build a relationship with a new person as adults if you still live. I don't care what you tell me what their relationship is. If you still live with that person, if you are, you know what I mean, still in that, or literally just, at the point where you still see them all the time, because again, you might have kids together, and that's fine, and you might need to see them from time to time. I understand that. But you can really tell based on like some of the signals and some of the signs that they're going to be throwing out, because they're pretty transparent about that usually, right? They don't have to tell you that they're still in love with them and they're not over them, but you can sense that just based on what they're talking about, how much are they talking about that, and their current conditions of their lives. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that at this point, whichever amount of time it has been since their divorce or breakup, that at this point they're living a full life, right? That's not attached to their ex. That's really all I want to see in relation to that question, by the way. But that's all I really want to see. I want to see that they're living their own life, that they have their own hobbies, that they have their own, interests, that that their lives does not revolve around their ex, that they, even they might share some friends, but they don't like hang out with each other all the time still. They don't go on vacations together as a family anymore, that they don't doing all of these things, together anymore, that they are actually legitimately just moved on and they have their own interests, they have their own place to live, they have their own hobbies, they have their own friends, they have their own, that they're not tied to that person anymore, whether it's just physically tied to that person when they live together or just emotionally tied to that person. Again, the emotional, aspect, you can really see that because they will volunteer that information, whether they want it or not. They will talk about their ex, and again, whether they talk good things or bad things, right? Because a lot of like the clients that I work with, they're like, oh yeah, but no, there's no feelings there anymore. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Well, they hate their ex. I'm like, well, how do you know that? We're like, oh, they constantly are talking about her. They're, bashing that person. They're telling them how horrible she was and how happy that they are that they moved on. I'm like, oh, if the guy spends most of his time with you or a lot of his time with you talking about his ex, I don't care if he curses them out or if he says nice things about them, right? Either way, if that's what they're doing, that means that they're just mentally are still stuck at that point, that they're at this point not ready to really build a relationship with someone new because they're still stuck. There is a lot of emotion that are still involved, that are still attached to that other person. And again, whether that's love or hate, I don't really care. It's exact same thing, and you'll find out the hard way if you try to build a relationship with that person. So again, to me, there is no a specific amount of time. But as you get to know them, you want to make sure that you really assess whether or not there's still that connection, with their ex. Because again, so many people that end relationships have mentally, and sometimes not even only mentally, right, checked out of these relationships long before that relationship really officially ended. So whether like, oh, well, last week or last month or last year, it doesn't really matter because I've met so many clients, right, that they've ended their relationships years, in the past, but they're still not over them. That they still need to do some work, right? And this is where we work together to like really build, right, the relationship that they need with themselves first before they're able to really build a healthy relationship with another person. And sometimes it's been years since their breakup or divorce, and they just are not intentionally trying to like really get to that point, right? They think that work on themselves, like you can go to the gym and you can look better and you can do other things, and but that like that conscious work that you need to do within yourself to just like know how to put yourself back out there and really like the things that you need to do in order to like just rebuild a healthy relationship with yourself is something that's separate, that a lot of people just skip through, and it could be years, months, or years down the line and they're still not really over it. So it could really work both ways. And there could be, like I said, people who are just, they broke up or they moved out yesterday or last week and they're just completely checked out. They nothing is holding them back to that person anymore. So it's really not like a specific amount of time. Hopefully this video was helpful. I'll do a lot more questions in a few of my future videos. And the past videos, if you haven't seen them, check them out as well. So I decided, if you don't already know, to answer some questions that I get on Instagram pretty often. So this is kind of like a part of a series where I answer them. So if you want to see some more of these Q&As, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.